Hello everybody, what is going on? This is David coming back with another video on David Hume's Treatise of Human Nature. So in this video I'm going to be talking about Book 1 of the Understanding, Section 1 of the Origin of Our Ideas. So where do our ideas originate? So David Hume makes this clear distinction between impressions and ideas. Now impressions are going to be the things that hit us, the perceptions that hit us with the most force and vivacity. So it's going to be the very first appearance in the soul. So if I were to take a look at this pen, for example, and I were to take a look at it for the very first time, it's going to hit me with the degree of force and vivacity that is at its highest point relative to when I think about that again. So that first impression is going to hit me with the most force and vivacity. Now if I take it away from my view and I think about it, then that becomes an idea. And ideas are going to be faint images of impressions which can be invoked through thought and reasoning. So I think about it again, and I'm thinking about that impression, and that I'm invoking that very impression through my own thought process. And so the big difference between impressions are ideas, and ideas are going to be the force and vivacity at which it hits us. So, I look at that pen for the very first time, it hits me with a degree of force and vivacity at its highest relative to all the other subsequent times that I try to invoke that memory. So if I think about the first time that I saw that pen, it's going to hit with less force and vivacity, with a reduced force and vivacity. And it's going to have this kind of attritioning effect to the point where it just dwindles down and the force and vivacity is so minuscule that I barely feel it. So the very big difference between impressions and ideas are going to be the degree of force and vivacity. And the force and vivacity is highest when I first see it, which is the impression. So Hume goes on to say, or to divide this even further by saying that there are simple ideas and impressions and then complex ideas and impressions. So if I were to take a look at this pen, right, I see that there's a blue, there's black, there's white. I feel the pen, it's kind of rubbery, it's kind of soft. I try to listen to the pen, there's no noise obviously, but and other characteristics. So the simple kind of idea or impression is going to be, maybe for example on this one, is going to be the color, maybe the blue right here. That would be one characteristic of the pen. That would be a simple idea or impression. Now if I were to take the whole, all of the characteristics of the pen, the noise, the feel, what I can see, that's going to be a complex idea or impression, because it's going to be an agglomeration of these different simple characteristics of the pen. And so from there, David Hume pretty much lays the groundwork and can work his way up into what he wants to find as, some kind of semblance of truth. So David Hume goes on to say that, these ideas can be formed from exact impressions, but not necessarily the other way around. So I can't really think of something that is outside of my realm of experience. I can't really, even if I try really hard, I can't think of anything that is outside of something that I have not been impressed with on my mind. However, David Hume does go on to say that we can take simple ideas or impressions, agglomerate them together into something that doesn't really exist. So for example, if I think of something like a unicorn, right? Sasquatch, Bigfoot, something like that, right? Where, they've been posited as possibly existing. But anyway, I'm not going to get into that. I'm going to go with the premise that they don't exist, right? And so I can take these different components, right? Like in the unicorn, you have the little horn, right? And you have the horse, right? And so a horn is something that I've seen before somewhere in my experience, right? It could be on a walrus, it could be, on something that I've seen in the past. And then obviously the unicorn, obviously like the whole thing is the horse. And so that's something that I've seen before. Obviously there's many components to the horse, but anyway, you get the point, right? I can put these different characteristics together. I can come up with something that doesn't really exist. And so David Hume does go on to talk a little bit about that. So anyways, from all this, David Hume comes with a very specific axiom or rule and states that every simple idea has a simple impression which resembles it, and every simple impression a corresponding idea. So what he goes on to say is that for every for every idea, for anything in our mind, anything that is going on, we have an initial impression. There's nothing that we can think of that is outside of our realm of experience, and that it's got to be like that. And he goes on to explicate, or he goes on to come up with another rule or axiom, which states that all our simple ideas in their first appearance are derived from simple impressions. So all these ideas that we have come from simple impressions. And now he's providing basically a thesis here, right? So he's got to substantiate this in one way or another. So he goes on to provide two reasons for why this would be the case. The first reason would be that there's this constant conjunction between ideas and impressions, right? We always, there's always this impression, idea, impression, idea, impression, idea. And it's always like that. And because of this constant conjunction of these two, the constant dependence on each other, that is basically substantiating this very notion that all our simple ideas come from simple impressions. And then the second reason for why he would say something like this is because impressions always take precedence to ideas. So it's always impressions first and ideas second, and it can't be the other way around. It's always got to be the ideas that we have in our mind is always got to come from impressions. He does go on to state that there is an exception, but that this wouldn't break the total axiom because it is so rare and singular. But he does go on to say that, for example, maybe there's an artist that has been, doing some paint work for quite a while, and this artist, for some reason or another, doesn't have a particular shade of blue in his mind. It's not registered in his mind, and so is he able to kind of fill in that gap and kind of, come up with some kind of shade of blue or some kind of semblance of it? And he does go on to state that that is possible, but quite rare. But that the axiom would be that every simple idea in their first appearance are derived from simple impressions. So basically, all this right here that he's talking about is refuting those kind of notions where people were talking about that there were these innate ideas within us. So he's trying to really refute all of that and put all that into question. So now that's pretty much the end of the video. Thank you guys so much for watching. I'm going to get into the next section in the next video. Thanks. Have a great day.